It's your turn. What do you wish to do? When that question is asked, you should be able to give your response within a few seconds at most. We are playing a group game with multiple people involved, and of course, the spotlight is on you for a brief moment, but you have to share that spotlight. Everyone gets their turn, and we don't want you to take up everyone else's time. When it comes around to your turn, whether this be in combat or some sort of encounter, whatever the case may be, you need to be ready on the spot to come up with something. It doesn't need to be super elaborate, it doesn't need to be the most creative thing, but it needs to be something. In fact, I'm willing to bet that you're going to get the most fun out of the improv things that you don't thoroughly think of, the things that you don't spend meticulous time on, because that feels more genuine. It feels more real. Your character is usually in a state of having to react in a few seconds. Why shouldn't you be the same? Reasons why you need to get on with your turn is it's not fun for everyone who's sitting on the sidelines. If player A does their turn in 30 seconds, player B does their turn in 30 seconds, but then player C does their turn in 10 minutes, does that seem like a fun time to you? Do you want to be one of those people sitting on the sideline, just sitting there, standing, waiting, doing effectively nothing while something is getting resolved? That doesn't sound like a fun time to me. Now, if things are super technical and everyone is somewhat involved in this, then it's perfectly fine. But if you're taking your time with things, trying to come up with the best solution, then quite frankly, it doesn't matter what the end result is because we all lose. Because everyone is getting their time not spent as productively as they probably want to. Speaking of that, we only have so much time in the session. If we are running a 3-hour session once a week and you spend 20 some odd minutes of it just doing nothing, that's a big chunk of time. If you are spending time trying to figure out the best solution, trying to come up with something creative, doing all these various things, then that's taking into the time that we have. Unfortunately, we only have so much time in the world, and we only have so much time to play these sessions. Make the most out of these sessions. Have it be a blast through and through. Don't waste your time, don't waste everyone else's time. If you have questions, ask them on the side or before or after the session. If you have a question about what your spell does, well, you should have probably already looked at your spell well ahead of time. You should have looked it up. You should have done a whole bunch of various things. You should have consulted with the DM on how the spell actually works or whatever sort of feature or whatever ability. Confer with other people, confer with the DM, confer with the other players. Do these things outside of the session time because during that session time, we just want to get right on with the action. We don't want to have a learning process. We don't want to be diving through all these tomes that we really don't have to be diving through right now. And if something super technical does come up, then at least try to figure it out in between your turn and someone else's turn. Either try to talk to the DM or try to talk to another player on the side there. Try to figure out what the best solution is, how this mechanic works. Do all these things without trying to interfere with the game at hand. Now, one thing I like to do is have a timer so that everyone operates in the same time frame. This can be saying, hey, you have 1 minute to actually decide your action, what do you wish to do? Or it could be sort of a, hey, everyone else took this much time, let's try and keep it around the same time, shall we? It can be a hard, stringent time limit, it can be fast and loose, but trying to keep the game on a steady and smooth pace is absolutely one of the ways to go. Of course, there is some times where just things get bogged down in the technical. All the rules start popping up, all of the weird dice start popping up, and of course, the timer isn't always going to be perfect, but try and keep it to some degree. Make sure that everyone has their chance to do what they want to do, but at the same time, not spend too much time on any one thing. And something I cannot stress enough is if you are trying to do something, if you are trying to do a certain thing a certain way, just roll the dice. Don't get bothered in the technicals of, oh, I've got a plus to this, but I've got a minus to that, but then my ability does this. Just roll the dice. More often than not, the dice is going to tell you if you succeeded or failed by a wide margin. But there is, of course, the times where it does land right there in the center, and you got to figure out, okay, which way is it going to land? But more often than not, just rolling the dice will easily tell you if you succeeded or failed. Simple as that. Whenever I have any sort of circumstance where there is just some sort of technicality and I don't want to be bothered looking through the book for 10 whole minutes, just roll the dice. We can figure out all the other mechanical stuff at a later time after the session. We can figure out how exactly the spell works. We can figure out how that ability functions. We can do all these things at a later time. I don't care about having to spend a few minutes outside of the game session. That's perfectly fine. What I do care about is making the session that we're playing right now the best and smoothest it can be. Now, I want to be clear that this isn't exactly calling out people that traditionally take a longer time. What I do care about is the fact that your time should not be impeding on other people's enjoyment of the game. We should all be showing up to the table and having a great time, and I promise you that if everyone is lickety-split on their decisions, whether it's because they're coming up with their decisions in between everyone else's turns, or they simply roll for it, or they have everything figured out, whatever the case may be, having everyone's turns be smooth, fast, to the point is going to lead to a better game, I promise you. So go ahead and tell me, do you have your own tips and tricks on how you try to make your turns even faster? Do you put timers on certain actions and turns saying, hey, you've only got so much time before you just do the default action? And tell me about the longest time you've ever sat down reading through all of the pages of some book in the middle of a session because you wanted to find the answer to something. I remember a game I was a player in, we spent a whole 20, maybe 30 minutes looking through the pages of the book trying to figure out the exact answer. That's not a fun time. So go ahead and tell me all those things because I would love to hear it. But that's going to do it for me. Thank you for watching. Thanks for listening. And thank you to my amazing patrons. You guys are absolutely incredible. Thanks so very much. And I cannot wait to see you all in the next one.